My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit. As I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that poses the important question. What if there are things to talk about during the football season that aren't trades or contact rumours? My name's Jack, and I'm joined this week by Polly from the True Bloods podcast, and from being loud and correct on Twitter, and Joe from being Joe.
Also being loud and correct on Twitter.
Who you may have
from This Week in Football.
In This Week in Football. And you've seen Polly's headers for This Week in Football. Both great friends of the show for a long time. Welcome to the Back Pocket.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here. Very happy to fill in.
Yeah.
Very happy to talk about the back six.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both support one of the most famously defensive clubs in football history. So, despite my gripes with the coach that pioneered all of that. So I usually start by running a wrap of the weekend's games, and you can jump in with any extra points about them if you want. But again, it was another round of reasonably hard to watch football, I thought. Fremantle versus Essendon was a game that I attended and was not as bad as I was worried it was going to be, but it was also really just Freo kind of holding off Essendon.
It was weird though. Like it was like for 5 minutes it was good and then it was bad again. Then 5 minutes it was good again. It was like, I felt like it was one of those ones where as soon as you turned it off, someone was like, oh shit, there was an amazing goal. And you flicked back and it was bad again. Yeah,
Caleb's wrong kick's maybe the best goal I've seen from a Freo player all season. And then my mate who I was there with gets back to his seat and sits down and nothing happens for the next 10 minutes. And I was like, yeah, that checks out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Geelong then played Brisbane the next night, which showed that you should never give the footy gods a chance to humble you, as 30,000 people. They did, to be fair, give them all shirts to wave that looked like white flags.
I think
which
flags would have been better in hindsight.
Yeah.
Who wants... I'm taking two large males, so it's a bit different. But who wants 4XL white shirts? Like, what would I ever do with that?
I would wear a pretty large white shirt, and famously have. But when I saw them, I was like, I would just cut the two front logos off and use them on like a jacket or something. They didn't look like smart. Great shirts.
They look like a one wash, start to go see through kind of white shirt, but. Middle of winter as well. Like what?
In Geelong, of all places.
Geelong, yeah.
Did see at least one Brisbane fan had the shirt on and then their Brisbane scarf over it. So I'm not sure if you understood what they were going for here.
They just like
free merch is free merch.
Never close and you didn't get embarrassed by this. But
that's right. I was at the Freo game last week with a Tassie Devils jumper on and an East Fremantle scarf from 1970. So I think that confused a lot of people.
A defunct club that never existed, I think, is a bit better than a team that you're actually playing against.
That is true. Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to wear. I've got a woolen Essendon jumper that Beth found at an op shop for $7. That's worth like $150, but I couldn't bring myself to wear it because I just couldn't.
I think that's fair enough. Like, why would you want to wear an Essendon shirt?
Yeah. But it'll be a great gift for whoever I finally decide to give it to one day.
Money.
Saturday, Carlton and North was a bad game between two bad teams. But Carlton finally won a last quarter, which was nice for them. Nothing else happened bad for them that game. Port and Sydney was Joel Amati. That was the only thing I enjoyed about that game. I'm sure you guys enjoyed it for very different reasons.
And now he's pulled a hammy and he's not playing this week.
I saw that, yeah. Maybe he should have said, like, you know, if anyone asked him about it, he actually felt it early in the first quarter. And that explains all of the kicking. But
that would have been me about halfway into that. I wouldn't have let it get to 6 behind. As soon as I hit the third one, I'm reaching back, putting the hand up.
The morbid curiosity Alistair and I were watching him kick on goal with from that point on in the game. Like, as soon as I sat down at home, and there was that one he took like 25 metres out directly in front. We're like, surely this is the one. No.
I think that and the Geelong game were both great examples of like psychology coming into accuracy. Because Geelong was like the whole team. You could see them panicking. But the thing about Sydney is that, like, you look on the X score and it's just like everything outside of Joel. It wasn't incredible, but it was fine. It was like just slightly below average. And it was just Joel by himself having a shit day.
Yeah, I feel like if I'd asked you guys before that game, do you want Joel Amati to take 7 marks inside 50 for the game? You'd just lock that in immediately.
Yeah, like it's one of those ones
Absolutely.
where you're just not mad. You're just kind of like, well, I'm confused, but it's still fine. Like
Yeah.
it kept
Once
the
it was
ball
clear
down
we weren't
there.
going to lose, I was like, this is so good. I hope he keeps on missing. I hope he commits to the bit.
My favorite thing to come out after the game was Millsy went up to him straight after, and he just was like, "I am throwing these boots out as soon as we get back to
I
Sydney
did, I
outside."
did hear
Like,
that.
and you
And I
could
can
see on the coverage, Millsy went up to him and was like, "Oh, this is obviously just an audio podcast," but he's puts his hand up like, "Why were you not kicking through the post?" Like,
I always get told off by Alistair for almost bringing this story up, but one of my favorite footy stories, if he listens back to this, he'll be like, the one
why
week
did you
he's
talk
off.
about this?
There was a game where Geelong came to Perth in, I reckon it'd be like 2005, and Kent Kingsley forgot his boots and wore Matthew Scarlett's, and he kicked 6 goals, and he kept the boots. He was like, they're my boots now.
I don't
Like,
think
you're
you could
not
say no to
getting those
that.
back.
Yeah, that's
Um,
like,
and I love that footballers are so weird about that. It's one of my sports
it's
people and superstition.
I was gonna say it's very similar to we're gonna go on a tangent now, but cricketers and bats and gloves. Like no matter what the equipment is that you can slightly control, they want to be in control of it.
One of my favorite things ever to watch. And we were at the Boxing Day test a couple of years ago when David Warner made that 200. So
Yeah.
we saw the first day of his batting where he only made like 80 of those runs, to be fair. But watching him every ball undo both of his gloves, walk straight towards square leg, and lean on his bat until the bowler reaches the top of their mark, and then walk back in and do back both of his gloves. Incredible. Like there's just something about cricketers' brains that I would love to study. Not to be confused with footballers'
A lot
brains
of
that I
them
love
are
to study, which is a
undiagnosed.
CTE issue. But yes, I mean that's it. Like batters, you have to be undiagnosed to be good at batting. I think that's just the rules. It's like jocks and nerds,
Yeah.
and then spin bowlers are weird loose units who are nerds that think they're jocks. I think that's the like cricket.
They get to hang out with the jocks as in the fast bowlers, so they think
Yeah,
they're a jock, but they're actually not. Yeah.
that's exactly it. Yeah,
Yeah.
like me in the high school football program.
Yeah.
Like, why are you here? Like,
Well, it's
why do
like
you look
whenever you
like a member of
see
short stack, but you're also playing fullback? This doesn't make any sense.
yeah, whenever you see them, like they're on tour, they've got the Sharon out, like the day before a test match. It's never like the top order batsmen who are kicking that around. It's always the bowlers and like maybe Travis Head.
Mitch Stark with his, I think I've seen him, never seen him without it for the last 5 years, GWS hat on, just lacing them out. Didn't Nathan Lyon like get one of the top scores in the Yarra kick a few years ago?
Probably. But
Yeah,
you,
Alex
I
Carey
just can't
was the
even
inaugural
imagine
captain for GWS.
batters watching any other sport, really. Like they only care about cricket. But I
They'd
feel
probably
like
be into like the weird technicals. I reckon they'd love handball or something like that. I love handball. That's my favorite Olympic sport. Do I watch it any other time of the year? No. Every 4 years when the Olympics is on, I'm watching the handball. It's the best sport on earth. I don't know who invented it. Most of the rules don't make sense.
some European nation.
Yeah, I heard I used to date someone with a Danish family, and apparently the Danes are really into handball.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. This has been a great effort, by the way, avoiding talking about St Kilda.
it
I
almost
like that we got
was,
right up to
yeah.
the precipice and
I
like,
could,
let's talk
yeah,
about
I could get
handball.
there. It was one of Collingwood's 2 home games at Marvel against the Marvel Tenant, which is a big. Now you know how it feels to Collingwood. I like that.
Yeah.
I thought the Saints tried hard. And then Nick Dacos had one of the most insane final terms, or at least 5 minute patches in the final term of the year. To kick that goal and then 2 minutes later just lace out a target inside 50 to set up the next one was like he got bored. It was like he was like, well, that was fun, but now St Kilda, you guys can
Yeah,
go
being
home.
tagged was a good experiment, but here we go.
I mean, I think it was one of my downs last week. Is like if you don't have someone who can run lots, don't tag Dacos with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they've got someone who
100%.
can't run and tried to tag Dacos with them.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the issue with tagging him or like tagging is that so much of his ability, especially at stoppages, is that first couple steps of acceleration that, yeah, as you say, not just run, but like they have to be that quick off the mark to go with him as well. And if, yeah,
Yeah,
you give him that space, it's just going to tear apart.
which is why like a Bedford or a Mullen works, but a Jordan in that game didn't, and why Windiger here didn't. Because if you can't keep pace with him both speed off the mark and tank, there's no point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been really awful as a Collingwood hater realizing that Dacos is exactly as good as they say he is.
He is a generational talent for sure.
Yeah.
I wrote it down
There's
as a
no
note
level of
here
exaggeration
that
here.
I
He's just that
accidentally
good.
became public enemy number one on Collingwood Twitter during that game for tweeting about a commentary moment without giving the context that I was complaining about the commentary, and everyone thought that I was saying that Dacos is overrated.
I just made a joke about Dacos taking a photo with Josh Kennedy, and people started coming for me for that, for
It's
just faking a joke that didn't even disparage
insane.
him. It was like,
But it
yes,
was
he's your
like,
favorite son. Okay, okay, like, I get
I
it.
think it was Dunstall just said that like he would, if you gave him that kick, he'd hit it 99 out of 100 times. And I was like, he is not even close to the best kick in the AFL, no matter what stat or metric you measure it by. And then Collingwood fans were saying that I was saying he was overrated. I was like, that's not what I was saying at all. I'm just
The inability to read, it's a
I
pandemic,
wish
really.
like my solution to that is if you're a commentator and you say that a specific player has made a rare or 1 in 100 error once, every time after that you get zapped with like a shot collar because you've proven yourself wrong with the second time you've said it. That's done. You're done. That's enough rare
So
errors.
Derm will just be incapacitated by
Yeah,
the end
well,
of the first
he
quarter.
often is. I think I Derm is one of those ones where I'm like, I see him on the commentary and I'm like, oh no. But if you told me I could go to the pub with Derm, I'd be there like immediately. He would be the best
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah. It depends on who he's with. And he's always put with the other not very good commentators. So it just makes it like
Dermy and Alistair
unbearable.
Lynch with like John O'Brien, and you're like, oh, this is going to be an afternoon.
I think it was Jared, Derm,
Oh,
and Gary Lyon or something for
I
the
can
Swans
imagine that.
Port game. And it was just like, oh my God. Talking about anything
Um,
other than the actual game itself, you know.
Sunday, we had probably the best expansion cup so far, in which the Suns pulled off maybe the most Suns result possible by being 20-ish points up at three-quarter time, losing the lead, taking back the lead, and then also like the inverse of GWS having the most insane ability to kick low percentage goals in games like that. Like if there is the opposite of an X score like loser, it's GWS almost every league.
Absolutely. And it's not just that like they've been good the last couple of years, like since getting Hogan, because you see that with the teams like consistently outperforming, as they'll usually have like one key forward they put an abnormal amount of
Yeah,
their attack through.
like Adelaide
But
with
they always
Fogarty and
seem to like
Keys.
find people on their off week too. Like if you're having a bad day in front of goal, then like 8 times out of 10 you're playing GWS. It's a miracle Joel Amadi wasn't playing against GWS.
Yeah, there was a moment like obviously the one that's been talked about all week was the Walter shot on goal, where he just kind of like lazily tried to poke it through.
Yeah, the walk
missed.
up.
That was terrible. But the one for me was at the end of the game when King got that free kick in the pocket and decided to kick a drop punt. And I was like, if there was ever a time where it was okay to go around on the set shot snap, that was the time.
Yeah. It's like Hardwick has trained them up into everything. There's like, all right, I'm starting at the top of the game. We're working down the list, and they just haven't quite gotten to how to ice a game out. That's how it feels watching the Suns. It's like
he's
we
too
need
preoccupied with
three
law
more
and order in
weeks.
Victoria.
Yeah, and flipping people off, and they're getting fined for it.
I couldn't believe. It's actually my next note is the way he asked Fox Footy to pay for it because they aired the footage.
What? I think that's fair enough.
But
Well,
every
that's not
other
his
bird
fault they
that's been
decided to
flipped off
show
this
it.
year, other than the Harley Reid one, which was just on camera, the other ones have all been like fan footage as well.
And that girl in the stands.
I think we should hunt down the fans who video, and we'll make them pay the fines.
Make them pay the fines. Hey, you're willing to film the players and abuse them? Yeah, maybe you should pay the fine.
And then I'm happy to skip over Bulldogs Tigers because that went how I expected that game to go.
I think I watched
other
all
than
5 minutes that game.
Trelaw re-injuring his calf, which sucks.
Yeah.
That's it. Just before we do, I want to bring up that it's really funny watching Bulldogs fans see like another, what was it, 79 points in the end, and they're still not convinced.
No team suffers through a win like Bulldogs fans.
Yeah, it is.
They are. I made a spreadsheet a few years ago about why they would be the hardest team to follow. Like they are the most almost in the 8 or just in the 8 team of the AFL era. Like they are always somewhere between 5th and 10th almost every year. The years that they are really good, no chance. And then the years that they're not good, they'll finish like fifth. And you're like, how did you get there? What happened, Bulldogs? What are you doing? Like things like losing to Adelaide last year to cost them potentially a top 4 spot or at least 5th spot. Losing to West Coast to miss out on finals a couple of years ago. They're like, I love the Bulldogs. I have a massive soft spot for them because my granddad was a Bulldogs fan before he changed to West Coast when they had a team. So Dad and I were so happy for the Bulldogs when they won that flag. But I'm so glad that I'm not emotionally invested in
We weren't.
I'm sure you guys weren't. But see, at that time, I thought there was plenty of success still to come for Sydney. I didn't see the next, I didn't see it panning out like that afterwards.
Look, I can tell you, it is pretty hard being a Swan supporter, but at the same time, it's different. It's a different kind of level of difficulty.
If Geelong didn't win the 22 flag, I would have a heavy level of relatability to what that is like.
Hey, look, we always say it's the brotherhood between the
if it wasn't for Sydney helping Geelong get there, really, that was Geelong's like 10 years leading up. Like every year, it'd be like, what do you expect this? It's like, well, I think we'll make a prelim and lose it. I think that's probably the likely result.
Yeah. After you guys won that, I had said, okay, it was Geelong's time to win one. Somehow you guys are still good. Don't understand how that's possible. And we will be back.
Last year was the first year ever I hadn't picked Geelong to be top 4 for like 10 years. And then like watching that season last year, all year I kept saying to people, they're not that good. Don't worry about it. Like they're overperforming all year. I was like, don't believe it. They're overperforming. And we got to September and I went, maybe they weren't. Maybe that was the level. That was
I think the three of us have all been personally victimized by the Brisbane Football Club. It's fine. People look at me so weird when I say I don't like Brisbane, and they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I have many, many reasons."
I have hated Brisbane for so long. I remember in 2019 when they were just like starting to turn it around, and it was a feel-good story because they'd been terrible for like I want to say like at least a decade, maybe a little bit less, but they've been like out of the premiership picture since like the mid 2000s. And like I remember round 1, it was so exciting because they beat West Coast. But I had already decided I disliked them entirely because of like Eric Hipwood had a game where I think he just like was giving Melican shit and it all just started clicking for me where I like started piecing together how many ex-Hawthorn guys they had. And Dane Beams was their captain at the time. Like, you know what? I like this club. And it's taken so long, but I was vindicated.
So for me with Brisbane, right? So like for me, it's Zorko. It was Hodge. Hipwood's in that category too. Lachie Neale, not a personal vendetta, but I have friends who, from when he was over in Perth, don't like Lachie Neale. So on behalf of them also. And Andrews for being a mouthy wanker his entire career before he had any reason to be one. Like Brisbane. And then, unlike every other team who I dislike in the AFL, my dislike of Brisbane extends to the W. Like they are...
Yeah, that's fair. That's very valid.
They are the most horrible team to play. Yep. Like, it is the most frustrating watch.
Yep.
We went to Melbourne last year. I think it was for a wedding. The week of the grand final, and we went and we ran into the Brisbane players at the airport, the women's team, and they were like crowded around the baggage carousel. And I was like, well, that's bad vibes. So you've got to lose the flag now because you can't be. They were like standing like this close to it, and I was like, that's not right. Stand back.
That's no good. Yeah,
It wasn't a private flight, girls. Let's not be doing that.
Some decorum, please.
I spotted a few players, and I was like, is that Brisbane? And then I saw Craig Starcevich, and I went, shit, that's Brisbane. Yeah. That's weird. All right, anyway. Now to pay an overpriced ticket for the Skybus. Worst ever. Anyway.
See, how you guys feel about Brisbane is how I feel about North, but we don't have to get into that.
Oh, look.
I
had no feelings about North until I started running a Twitter account that interacts with people from all football clubs. And then my feelings about North rapidly changed. They might be, like, per capita, the craziest fans on the internet. I don't know how it happened. There's some really lovely ones who I talk to all the time, but then like there's the ones that just like you say one thing about how Jerry is just good and not great, and you just get yelled at for a week. And it's like, I still think he's good. I don't.
It's like this and this with them and Carlton. And they go back and forth between the craziness of those two fan bases.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like I was saying earlier, I find it hard to hate Carlton because I live with Alistair.
Yeah.
And I don't live on the East Coast, so I don't meet many other Carlton supporters. So I just have suffering first. Like it's like secondhand suffering. Like every time Carlton play, I'm like, that would be horrible. Yeah, that would be. I'm looking up at the TV now, and it's 5 minutes into the second quarter. It's 36-4. So I don't.
Funny. Oh, that's funny.
My dad can't stand Carlton. Like burning passion from '95 when they beat Geelong. Like it's just been ever since.
I found this is a bit of a generational divide with Carlton, where like for me, my earliest footy memories start forming around about the time they got done for cheating, and so they lost those draft picks, etc. So like this is the best Carlton team I've ever known.
Yes.
Like, and they're not particularly good, but like
No.
because I can't remember like the 80s or 90s when they were just like this mafia club buying premierships. Apparently, I think there's a story about how they tried to buy the Swans license and say, "Oh, we'll play out away games at the SCG" or something terrible like that.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're evil, but I've never known them to be anything but a kind of a clown show, and
That's
so like
kind
I
of where
can't
I'm
find
at,
it in me to
because
hate
like
them.
I was so young when they got done for the salary cap cheating, whereas like
Yeah.
Dad was so fresh off Geelong losing in '95 that like for him it was like, and they cheated, like just immediately to his brain he was like, anyway. But then for me, like my whole life they were just awful. Like one of my earliest memories of Carlton was them and Richmond playing off for Brett Deledio.
It's very much like I didn't have an opinion, and then had to deal with Carlton fans, and I was like, you have made me hate your club. You have made me hate your club. I had no opinion about you before, and now I cannot stand you.
My fondest Carlton memory, though, like on behalf of Carlton, it's not their crazy finals run where they somehow made a prelim, just storming home against teams. It was when they made 8th because Essendon got kicked out of the finals.
That was so good.
And Nick Duigan gets pulled from the stands eating a sandwich before the game as a late in and kicks 5 goals against Richmond. And like it was just the fact that it was Richmond, Carlton, and Essendon all involved in that scenario that made it really funny. And it was before Richmond were good, and they were obviously 9th men for so long. And they finally finished 5th on the ladder. Like this is Richmond's here, and then they lose to the team that technically finished 9th. That was great. There was like a whole capsule there that was funny.
There was a shot right from the end of that game where I think it was Newman. Is that Chris Newman? Does that sound right? The Richmond guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like him standing on the boundary, or like you can see it like settling in that like they hadn't played in finals in so long, and they're going to lose to a team that finished outside the top 8.
I have so much sympathy for like Newman
as
and
upset as I've ever seen a player
Richardson
outside of a losing grand final. It's yeah,
like Newman and Richardson. I have so much sympathy for. Like they leave, and then suddenly Richmond's just generationally good.
Yeah,
like you've slaved away for this team that have sucked for like 20 years, and then you're like, all right, I've done my bit, I'm retiring, and then they're like, all right, we're winning 3 flags. Like, real good.
It'd be bad enough if they just like came up and fluked one, but no, they were like one of the teams of this century.
I was so happy for them after that first one. It changed so fast. I was like, stop winning now. I'm over it.
I'm still kind of. I don't hate them. Even though they won 3, I don't hate them.
Yeah, neither do I. I think that, and like I always say, like they've had probably the best experience. If you were like a 60-year-old Richmond fan, it would probably be the best way to watch football, which is most of the time you don't have to care because you're not making finals and losing and suffering that. But then every now and then your team just jumps back up and wins 2 flags and then disappears again. That would be quite nice so that you just switch off. Like that's better than
what we go through. Yeah, we have to actually pay attention for like until the end of September, and then you're just utterly disappointed. Yeah,
exactly. But I don't know if you guys know the context on that either. Like the first Richmond flag. So Nathan Broad, his dad and my mum were married for most of my childhood. So like I was so happy for him to win a flag. And then he had the scandal after the flag. And before it was even confirmed it was him, me and my dad were not shocked. Because the like kick up the arse he got to go and play football was to stop flying to Thailand every second month and focus on playing football. And he did, and he stopped drinking and he stopped partying. And that was like first time Brody had been allowed to party again. And boy, did he take it too far. So it's just one of those things where Dad and I were like, that's probably Brody, isn't it? Yeah, it's probably Brody. Yeah.
Who raised him?
I have beef with that man. Me and Brody got along well, but who raised him? We're not friends.
Brody Senior.
Anyway, I'm going to jump into the Scarlett Silvani medal votes, which I don't need your input from, but you can ooh and ah if you want. I got Alistair to send them through. Sorry, Joe, did you have?
So I'll just say one thing before we move on from the Richmond experience. There was a chart posted at the end of last week about games won since the year 2000. Richmond are 6 off the bottom with one less win than St Kilda, but
But like
like it's
three
also
flags.
got the premierships next to them. So it's St Kilda with 268, Richmond 267, 3 flags, Melbourne 249 with 1 flag.
Yeah, I saw someone saying like it's surprising that North are like equal with Carlton. I was like, I think you guys forget that North were good for a little bit. Like they were good
Yeah,
for a
this
little
is
bit.
what everyone that's like, oh, North, oh, I feel so good they won. They were so good all through all the early
Yeah.
teens. I don't
And
know
then they
what
decided
people
to
just forgotten. Like,
they decided to sack Brad Scott, and then they suffered forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's
And
a,
they
there's a
still blame Brad Scott.
there's a
So
bit of my
some of
yes,
my
soul.
best friends in the
yes.
world are North fans, but like
I
I
had to
hate every
write.
single one
I
of
mean,
them.
it's the reason I started writing with um this week in football because Cody messaged me after I posted the article. But like, I don't really like Essendon, but I had to go out of my way to write an article being like, Brad Scott has been telling you that he is rebuilding for 2 years, but every time you guys win 2 games in a row, you forget. You forget
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah,
Oh,
you gotta give a really good run of like the most debutants in the season, and people will be like, "Well, why doesn't he play the kids?"
Meanwhile, Ross Lyons, they don't need to make finals because he's rebuilding. Where's the rebuild?
Yeah, is it a rebuild when you play Brad Hill and Zach Jones every week?
And Jimmy Webster. I don't. Even
Yeah.
if you weren't rebuilding, I don't know how you're playing Jimmy Webster.
Oh my God.
Anyway, me and Ross have other beefs. That man. Anyway, Scarlett's bit I made votes. I got Alice's votes sent through, so I've got some notes from him. But I'll run through them quickly this week because you guys aren't inputting on this. But 2 votes is to Ben Miller for Richmond, who had 11 disposals, 7 of those were intercepts. He kept Norton goalless in that game, which was insane until he swapped onto Darcy in the last quarter and then Norton kicked a goal. He won 4 out of 4 one-on-ones under that barrage. 3 votes is to Darcy Moore, all from Alistair. Said Billy Frampton's votes in spirit. Also 7 intercepts from just 10 disposals. Had 5 score involvements. So 50% of his disposals went on to his scores, and 3 score launches from 10 touches, which is actually insane. And I feel bad maybe not voting for him. Callum Mills got 3 votes also on return-ish. Return to Electric Boogaloo. For his 27 touches, 8 score involvement, 3 score launches, 500 odd meters gained. 4 votes to usually whipping boy of the podcast, Luke Ryan, who Alistair and I both wrote very similar notes about, which is like he actually did a defender's job instead of just like a random link man. He had 10 intercepts, which is he had season highs for contested possessions, intercepts, player rating, and score launches, which shows he was actually.
Get that man an All-Australian jacket.
And I take it off him and give it to Sam Collins. And I watched it live as well, and he was really doing good work around the ground. 8 votes to Toby Pink, 4 from each of us. He kept Kerno goalless with 9 disposals and just 3 score involvements. And he's been doing really good for the last 4 to 5 weeks. 10 votes was to Harris Andrews for, I don't know how he didn't get 10 coaches' votes in that game. I don't know how the votes were decided, but someone either they both gave Andrews 4, or one of them gave Andrews 5, and the other one gave him 3. And then one coach
62, 7 and 1.
One coach either gave Rayner or Ashcroft 5, and the other coach gave one of those 2 0. So I don't know how. Like I think that both coaches just lost their minds voting on that game. But Andrews had 16.
Too much white on the brain. They just couldn't.
16 disposals at 94%. 11 of those were intercepts. He won 6 out of 6 one-on-ones on poor Shannon Neal, who he just destroyed. Had 17 rating points and 8 coaches' votes. Special mentions were to Nick Blakey, Rory Lobb, Tom Stewart, Connor Iden, Lockie Ash, Colby McCurcher.
Good votes, boys.
And in a rare score update, because I normally don't check the scores until tomorrow when I tally them all, but I did them today because I know Alice's votes ahead. Harris Andrews now leads on 33 votes from Jeremy Howe on 29, who have a 10-vote gap on Wilkie and Taylor.
Significant.
Which is insane. They are way in front now. But Harris Andrews, I think I was saying the other day to someone that I think he's a lock now if Taylor's out for the year as the All-Australian fullback. As he probably should have been the All-Australian fullback more times than he has, but that's a whole other...
He keeps getting injured.
He's a two-time Andrews only being a two-time All-Australian currently is insane to me. That doesn't make sense in my
Yes.
brain.
It's a little bit like how Jude Bolton never won All Australia. Like that doesn't sound right.
I can't remember what page it was posted that list of like people that it's surprising had never been All Australian. And one of them was Hugh McCluggage, and I was like, he's 27. I think we can wait a little bit to be surprised.
Yes. That's not
like
that surprising.
Most of those lists that I see where they're like players that's been most surprising, I'm like, it's just a list of guys who were like a top 10 player in a good team for a long time.
Yeah,
every time you look at the years they were All Australian, you're like, who do you want out? Like I was talking about Jack Crisp, and that's why the conversation came up. And they said like his best year, and I was like, so are you dropping Heaney or Blixarves? Or like who do you want out of that team? Because Heaney averaged 20 and 2 goals that year. What's your plan here?
So in the NBA, they've got like the All NBA first team, obviously, but they've got like a second and third team. And I think we need that for those guys who are pretty good.
The All Australian runners up.
Yeah, we need,
and then you guys
because we have the
play each
haul of
other.
pretty good.
I think that should happen.
We need something for like the Jake Lloyds of the world.
Like, because then if we picked the All Australian team based on the fact that they had to play each other in a game, one, knowing what Australia's like back from when they got rid of Australia playing Australia A in the cricket because no one was cheering for Australia, everyone would cheer for the second 22 in the All Australian.
Of course.
And also, they'd be forced to pick the All Australian team to be functional.
Well, yeah, they're
rather than just
wingers,
having a forward line of midfielders, wings of midfielders, and then a back line that is purely 3 really tall guys who have contests and 3 guys who intercept and nothing in between.
No one's picking Harry Cunningham for the Australian.
It'd be nice to have an All-Australian team based on like structure,
an actual functional team.
I could get around that, I reckon.
Oh, the Nick Smith All-Australian selection is a miracle.
There's some
scientists still can't understand how that happened.
My favourite ever was the Leon Davis ahead of Mark Lacroix that year when Lacroix kicked like 50 as a small forward. To be fair, 13 of them were in one game against Essendon.
Well,
but it's still a 50-goal year as a small forward. Like it's still. Yeah. And to be fair, Lacroix did get a flag, and Davis got dropped after the draw and did not.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like, it's not recency bias, but like your team did well bias, and they just don't really pay attention to the teams that do shit. Like it's a miracle West Coast got 2 entrants last year.
I am still about Waterman making it, but that's fine. You can. I mean. Like I'm always one of those ones where like we'll talk about Larky and like him being unlucky. There's been a lot of unlucky not to make it times, and I'm like, he's been the one guy they've been able to kick to for a long time. Like he's not as hugely three-dimensional as most All-Australian full forwards. He got in as the forward pocket,
like
I think.
22 as well.
Surely not anymore.
Oh, I thought he was really young.
Nick Larky.
Yeah, 20.
No, he's 27 this year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's a case for it.
No, everybody thinks this because I've had arguments with people where like, oh, they got a young key forward. Like, who are you talking about?
They're talking about
can't be the 27-year-old.
They're talking about what's his name?
The guy's going to retire in 3 years. Surely not.
Who they traded out their next year pick 2 for, which was an insane call.
So
I can't remember his name now. It's Wood something.
It's so easy to hate North Melbourne.
I mean, until Clark
and then it is, and then until people start getting in your comments, you're like, "Fuck, all right, I'll shut up."
Carlton are still goalless as a score update in this.
Yeah,
game.
I was about to.
Everyone listening to this tomorrow is going to be like, "Yeah, we know. We watched it last night." But it is 52
I've had
to 4.
the score up on my screen.
But
I'll tell them, I'll bring it up when Carlton eventually get a goal. And that was like 20 minutes ago that I decided to start watching that. It's 52 to 4.
Lockie Fogarty's about to line up to hopefully get Carlton's. Nope, he's missed. It's barely scored.
A moment to be like to the Carlton fans, and now you know how it feels. They're going to lose by 100 points.
I'm going to have to tell Alistair that he has to do the podcast every week now, no matter how sick he is, because this is what happens if he doesn't. Anyway, the one bit I asked you guys to prepare for was stocks up, stocks down. Did you guys get a chance to stocks up, stocks down?
Yes.
I will lead. So my stocks up this week is Caleb Sarong playing outside football. He's been doing it a bit more over the last 4 weeks. I think it was the best game I've seen him play this year. It's the highest uncontested possessions he's had this year in his career, actually, in a game. His kicking inside 50 was awesome. And I thought he captained really well also. So I picked him for the Brownlow last year and he polled weirdly. So I'm hoping that maybe he can storm home and get it because
it's pretty open playing field.
Even though Bailey Smith plays for Geelong, I don't really want Bailey Smith having a Brownlow. I feel like that might do critical levels of damage to ego we've never seen before. Whereas, like, I really like
unprecedented.
That'd be really nice. But yeah, Strong Brownlow would be nice. I would also be fine with Fremantle winning the flag because talk about fans who've suffered.
I think everyone would be fine with Freo winning the flag.
Except for West Coast fans.
Except for West Coast fans. And even then, I'm like, guys, it's your little brother. Grow up.
Yeah, West Coast fans talking about Freo. I'm like, guys, calm down. They haven't done anything yet. How can you hate them so much?
As two Swans fans who both have a soft spot for GWS, I just never have understood that. The Adelaide one I get, the WA one does not make sense to me.
Yeah, and like the derbies are interesting. They're not always good, but like the team you don't expect to win does sometimes win. Like, for example, West Coast last year, having one of their only 3 wins against Freo.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next with their stocks up?
I'll go. He was mentioned before. Callum Mills, unsurprisingly, I am bringing the skipper to.
Yeah. That is a huge stocks up.
Yeah, like this is his 3rd game back, but really his 2nd game back because he got suspended and then we had a bye. But at best 3 players on ground in both those 2 games. People were calling for him to lose his captaincy because he hadn't played for 2 years, and it just shows how much.
I heard conversations about that. I think I might have been on AFL Daily, and I was like, "What are you talking
Kane
about?"
Corns kept talking about it. He kept wanting Tahini to be captain. As someone who has spoken to Heaney, not to toot my own horn, and actually asked him about it, he doesn't even like being captain. So I don't know where they've gotten this idea that Heaney needs to be captain, but. It's so clear that is his perfect role, being off halfback and leading on the field. You can just see how much better that the Swans play when he is on the field and actually out there leading. And so I think it's his big stocks up. He's going to have a insane rest of the season, best we've ever seen him.
I do have rest of the season questions for you guys for later, so I'll hold that thought.
Sure.
Joe, I hope your stocks up isn't also Callum Mills.
No, my I've taken a bit of a liberal interpretation of stocks up here. I'm saying
that's fine. Yeah.
Buy low now because the stocks are going to go up on Gold Coast because because like AFL fans can't hold the idea of games in hand in their head. Everyone's pointing at the fact that they're down on the ladder. Doesn't matter. They've got like 2 more games to play than everyone else. And like they've just had that crap game against.
They're freebies against Essendon.
Yeah, they've got a freebie against Essendon, and like they've also got a run coming up of they have to play. I can't remember exactly the order, but it's I believe it's Collingwood, Adelaide, Brisbane, like within a 3-week block, and I reckon they'd be maybe lucky to take one of those, and that will be all-time high on like Gold Coast are still frauds, etc. But
and then they
I've looked at it, and all their other games are actually very easy,
very winnable. Yeah, but they
historically you need like. If you get 13 wins, you make finals more often than not. If you get 14, almost guaranteed. They're already on 8. They need 5 from their last 10 to get their first finals appearance. I think they will do it.
Do you think they'll win it?
I have them in a...
I think they will win a final, yeah.
I don't, because I have them in a cluster of teams that are going to finish... Like, it's GWS, them, Hawthorn, Sydney, in a cluster around that mark. I have the least faith of them out of those teams to beat whoever finishes 5th. Yeah. That's my only problem. Like I said
before, maybe Hardwick will get to the point of being able to teach them how to finish a game by that point, and they will be able to do it. But I think the lack of finals experience is going to be too much for them.
I found their performance against Geelong very lackluster for a team that at that time, before they then also lost more games, aspiring for top 4. I was like, you can't be just letting them manhandle you like that if you're also going to be a top team. They look better against GWS, but I also don't know if they're real yet either.
Oh, who knows?
Because GWS have beaten the top 3 teams in the comp and somehow no one else. Yeah, I don't really understand it. But so I kind of mentioned this earlier, but my stocks down was tagging Nick Dacos with someone who can't run. So I probably don't need to go into it more, but like you can send a player like Windhager to a Bontempelli, a Cripps, a Rowell, like someone whose primary job is to get in the engine room and get it out. But tagging Dacos like that is foolish. Which is kind of funny because last week I was saying about tagging Bont is pointless just in general because the Bulldogs have 112 inside midfielders that can all just take his place. Yeah. So 2 weeks in a row I'm saying tagging. I'm not down on tagging in general. I'm down on trying to tag and doing it completely wrong. So now you've just taken one of your players out of the game for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe. Not I don't believe in tagging, but I think that like the concept of tagging in terms of like a guy like a Windhager or like Crowley was a great example of this. He's speaking like that 2013 to 15 Fremantle side of like, oh, we're going to make it 17 on 17. I don't think anybody is actually good enough at the defensive work to make it
totally
really
take
17.
them out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you lose too much with a guy who's not running the other way, which is like, I like what job James Jordan does for us, where he's not like an incredible shutdown guy. He's not an incredible ball winner, but he does them both well enough to like make the like it wraps up like someone like Dacos or whoever he might be playing on, but he can also keep him accountable the other way. And that's my issue with Windhager and these sorts is that you just got to be able to like
early season. I was saying I thought that George Hewitt did the best job on Dacos I'd seen until Mullen just completely negated him a few weeks ago. But Hewitt got so much of his own ball. While not negating, but at least slowing Dacos. Like he brought Dacos to below his level and still performed at his best. Which is like what a modern tagger should be doing, like a Dunkley or a Berry at Brisbane.
Totally. I remember Hewitt years and years ago in Tom Mitchell's Brownlow year in both of our games against Hawthorn, he kept edge to one of his like lower disposal counts and pretty poor player rating in those games while getting a lot of that footy himself. And oh, hey, Carlton just got a goal.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Moments before that.
Where are we into the game? How far in?
Almost half.
It's nearly half time.
Okay, so it's very similar to Brisbane last year.
The top of
the semi or whatever it was.
The top of Butter's head just absolutely shattered Bergman's nose. Like Bergman's nose is in a bad state. Like
good lord.
They just ran into each other without looking.
And
Butters just kind of got up laughing and walked off.
Yeah.
As he does.
Interrupted myself there to point that out, but Hewitt's a great example of that.
I was going to say, you guys, Sydney needs to stop sending Carlton their most important player because it previously was Newman, who is now out injured, and I think that's genuinely their biggest problem structure-wise. And now their best player this year is also a former Sydney player. So, like,
two players I don't think any Swans fan wanted to lose, just to say it quietly. And it's always the case. No one knows who the hell they are when they play for the Swans, and then they go to a big Melbourne club, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, they're amazing!" And you're like, "Yeah, we know."
I also speak very fondly of Nick Newman because he's on exactly the right side of what I call the dickhead line, which is where like any player who gets right up to it without going too far is my favorite guy in football. Nick Newman has always been like right up to that line. Like the perfect example I think of when I describe what the test is it was when Joe Danaher was still playing for Essendon and James Sicily was playing on him, and Danaher gave away a 50 that took Sicily to the 50-metre arc. And running all the way back to full forward, Sicily was asking Danaher for a high five for the goal assist, just the entire way back. And I was like, that's exactly the level. Like, he's not going too far at all. But that would have pissed Danaher off an insane amount.
Mm-hmm.
I love, and Papley's exactly in that bracket as well.
Yeah, the pest, right?
Like But there's players that go past that, and that's annoying. Stop that. But right line. What's your stocks down, Polly?
So I more interpret it as something that I just think is really stupid.
Yeah, that's fine. That's often how we interpret it.
Gerald Whateley saying that he doesn't think there should be a defender award. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Well, I did say that. Without consulting us, we already have one. So rude.
But they're professional sports. They don't need ribbons. But the midfielders and goal, the forwards.
There's also like 500 different awards each year. What's one more?
And the defenders get none of them. And so that's why do you hate the defenders? Like, it's just such a weird take to
Mm,
have.
it was. Yeah, I heard the participation trophy bit and I was like, it's not, it's still not really a participant. Like only one guy wins it still.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just the best one. And I don't know how you measure that because obviously with the
Yeah,
forwards, it's like
it's
a
absolutely
very
gonna,
clear statistic, and the Brownlow is not, but it's
knowing
always
how
going
the
to go to a
AFL
midfielder.
works, it's almost definitely gonna go to the least defensive defender in the comp.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it'll be
Yeah.
some sort of other voting. So whoever does the best in the coaches'
It'll be
votes
like
gets
it'll be
the
like
defender award or something. I don't know.
like a few years
Yeah,
ago,
it
obviously
will be
Darcy
Luke
Moore's
Ryan.
yeah,
Yeah.
Darcy Moore's playing more defensive now, but it'll be like a Luke Ryan or a Connor Rosie, and you'll be like, they don't. What do you? What they don't defend?
Yeah.
They're another midfielder.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to give it to Riley Bice.
Who's out this week, which is rough.
Yes.
Well, because he heard what Waitley said. So, well, what
Yeah,
the
he
fuck
was
He's
am I
like, I'm not
doing?
going for the award.
God, don't even get a participation
Yeah, you can
trophy.
do a stocks down just on Waitley. It's
Yeah,
I think that maybe I didn't notice because he was like usually sitting next to Robbo, but
when he's
he
just
is such a
commentating,
grumpy old bastard.
totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't been able to watch 360 since Robbo left.
Dude,
Robbo
I
was
don't
what
know.
made that show because he was unhinged.
Oh,
I don't know if
tragic.
either of you watched the first episode of the '05 Grand Final doco that came out last night.
No, but I did
But
have to.
there's
I had to put pieces together to figure out that was what you were watching.
yeah, yeah.
I was like reading your
I
tweets. And I was
think
like, what on
most of
earth
the
is?
time I
Oh,
forget that not everyone that follows me are Swans fans. Because that's what my content is very much geared towards.
I got
But there
there.
was
'Cause
a '05 shot of Jared Waitley and it threw me for a loop because I'm so used to seeing him as this old guy. He still had coloured hair. I couldn't believe it.
Do you
yeah,
already have like the widow's peak going, or
yeah. He's
Not
always had
quite.
the. It's not. It
Not
wasn't as bad, but he's
quite.
always had
Not
the
as
shape.
bad. But he had these tiny little glasses on. It's worth a screenshot, honestly. If I might go back just to screenshot it.
I like
great.
that. You're saying about something that's dumb. Alistair went on a 10-minute rant about the AFL and AFL Live app and website last
Oh
week.
no, I
That was
did
his
hear
stocks
that.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh
so
no,
you're not alone in, in things that are just vaguely dumb. But
yeah,
also, I
no,
agree. It's
I was
so
nodding
annoying.
my head to every part of that. I wanted to like mention too the fact that you have to like switch it around. You can only have like 8 stats in there at a
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
That pissed me off.
And I have to if I want to see something that's not just in the defensive stats I'm writing down every week, I have to add new stats in. Just let me see the stats. Anyway, Willow supremacy always, obviously.
Yeah, we love
Um,
you, Andrew.
yeah, if you're listening or not, either way, just putting it out in the universe.
That's right.
Joe, stocks down.
Yeah, it's Gold Coast theme this week because I realised that as I was listening to last week's
Stocks
podcast, I
up.
couldn't just
Gold
cheat
Coast.
off on
Stocks
St
down.
Kilda like I wanted
Gold
to.
Coast.
But no, so my stocks down, it's specifically it's on Ben King, but like not as an individual so much as just like the way he's being used by them this week. So I'm not sure if you guys saw, but a lot of people got very angry at Jack Rewalt
For making a
for
very sensible suggestion.
exactly. And like I think the terminology around like he's not a key forward, he's like a tall half forward flank. It was
That was wrong.
whatever.
Yeah.
I think I didn't I don't get that, but I think that people in clubland have like very specific ways they
Mhm.
use positions, stuff like that. But like what he was saying about how he doesn't do like enough. He's not like playing like what you would consider like a traditional centre half forward, like what Buddy used to do,
Mhm.
what Jeremy Cameron currently does. It's absolutely true. And I like looked into it. He gets about half a kick a game that isn't a shot on goal.
And that half a
And
kick is terrible.
yeah, it's really bad. Like it's really low on like retention rating, threat rating, all of that. So he should kick it. But the worst still is that like he does all right for marks per game, but he gets I think it was 0.3 marks per game that aren't inside 50.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's actually like much, much lower than his last few years, where it was never like pushing up the ground, like going to get it at half back and or something like that. But he was getting between 1 to 2 again the last couple of years, and that's disappeared. And it's totally different from how like Tom Lynch or Rewalt would play in those premiership years under Dimmer. And it's just it doesn't I don't get what the point of using a guy like that is when it's like because if you're gonna be such a pure take mark, kick ball thing, then you either have to be like someone who wasn't a massive draft pick. Like we use Joel Amati that way. Normally it's fine. This last week notwithstanding, there are like limits on what I could expect him to do. But this I can't remember exactly where he went in the draft, but he was a top 10 pick.
Top 10. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even top 5. And it's like you just if you're not going to be doing anything else, you at least want to be like leading the Coleman.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, they
he.
just need
It's
to get more out of him, and I
it
think
is
he can do it. I think it's just yeah, the way he's being used is very, very odd to me because he's not generating anything else. And like if they don't win it and get it to him, he's not able to like catch and kill it himself. It's
it is really funny that the criticism is he doesn't do anything else, but then you watch him try and do anything else and it's bad. But like I know obviously he could try and add that to his game. But I've been saying similar things about I was annoyed when Mark Gottlieb got on the same train too the other day. But um Brisbane fans trying to be like, oh, and everyone's hyping up Nate Caddy and this is Logan Morris. I'm like, yeah, because Logan Morris does one thing, and that is take mark, kick goal. It's a good one trick pony with a really good trick. I used to say about Ollie Henry. There's many players, one trick pony, good trick. However,
yeah.
I'd still take Nate Caddy because he does everything and plays for an awful team.
Absolutely. I think that yeah, it's like
And like
those
you
are
compare
guys
that
we see it
to
particularly with like young tools who everything happening upstream of them is making them look a lot better.
yeah, and you compare that to Danaher, who used to do so much more than kick goals for Brisbane. Like his impact was more felt
Totally, yeah.
in the 30 meters outside 50 than it was when he was actually kicking goals, which was still good. Whereas Logan Morris is kicking goals, sure, but like he's not. If they're not getting the ball down there, he's not affecting the game at all. And I'm not. That's not a knock on Logan Morris, who is a pick 30 in his second year of AFL football. It's a knock on the people being like, oh, he's just so good. I'm like, he's good.
He does his job.
No, he's
and
good at the
doing
job
your
you're asking
job.
him to do. But like, let's
Yeah.
not get confused here.
Yeah,
He's
let's
doing
not-
your job so good. I don't know.
Yeah, like he's doing exactly what he should be doing
Yeah.
with his skill set in that team. Yeah, and that's fine. That's all of us on that. Sweet. So I'm jumping straight into the Sydney question I had earlier. Because so we mentioned it on here a few weeks ago. I think Alistair did a whole segment on it 6 weeks ago, and I also had a bit written down on it. It was really funny, which was that what a shock.
Footy,
Sydney looked better with their star players back. I can't believe that adding Mills and Goulden and Papley and to some extent Amadi to the team made them look better. It blew my mind. But like doing the maths, they need to win 8 or maybe 7 of their remaining 9 games. I think 8, obviously definite. 7 will be a push. Opponents are Bulldogs, Dockers, Saints, North, Giants, Bombers, Lions, Cats, Eagles. What do you guys reckon, odds wise? Are you just hopeful, or are you?
I'm
I don't know if this answers the question.
It doesn't
I'm
have
at
to.
the point where I'm like, we make finals, great. We don't. I saw so much more fun footy on Saturday against Port than I had all season. It's been a very it's been a
If they'd
it's not
kicked
been
straight, that game would have
fun.
been nuts.
It's not been fun watching Sydney, and even when we weren't kicking straight, I was having more fun watching us on the weekend than I had been in the first 16 weeks, wherever we're up to now.
Yeah.
So I do think, based on the footy I saw us play on the weekend, that we could potentially do it. I think there is a high chance that we go on a massive run. Brisbane did it last year. I know the competition was a lot closer last year, but Brisbane were in the exact same position last year that we are in now and won the flag. And this is not to say I think we're going to win the flag. This is just purely making finals. I do think that there is a high chance it will happen. And everyone that was like, oh my God, Sydney is so bad this year. Oh my God, there's no way they're playing finals. Oh my God, whatever, are going to have to eat their words.
It was a very funny overreaction. But also, like, on this pod, we were huge on Brisbane all of last year as well. Like, watching them, we were like, just wait. They've got, like, a really soft draw on the run home and they'll get players back.
Yeah. And I mean, our draw looked
we didn't expect what happened
about
to happen.
6 weeks ago. Our end of season draw looked a lot softer than it does now. Obviously, we have to play Geelong and Brisbane, and we're playing Bulldogs on Friday, which is, like, one of the best teams in the competition, and who knows about Freo, but it's
Depends
at
on what
home.
Bulldogs show up, but yes.
But we're playing North and West Coast, so it's like
I think I'll let you go, Joe, after I drop my 1 cent here, which is just I think if you win the next 2, like both of, huge chance.
Just and Amadi being injured.
Drop one of those 2 and it gets a lot harder. It's going to sound
like everyone's going to think I'm an idiot, but that is a massive loss.
Amadi brings the ball to ground. Like, that's one thing that a lot of, like, one of my main complaints of
he took 8 marks inside 50. No one could do that all season.
If they're not marking, and I always said about Mason Cox for years, I was like, if you're 212 centimeters tall, no marking contest should end up behind you. And that was my biggest criticism for ages. That never happens with the Marty. He might not mark it, but the ball is landing in front of him by several meters, so the Crummers can actually do their work. So I do agree that even when he's not kicking goals, having him in the team is important to structure.
Yeah.
And now, Joe, what are your hopes for the Sydney season?
I think, on balance, I think it's less likely to happen than not. I think the margin for error is probably too low for me to like get that hope, because it's just like I've had a look at the fixture a couple of times. Ever since we like beat Richmond, I was like, okay, so like if we win the 50-50s and the favourites and we steal one of those games against, I think it's Bulldogs, Brisbane and Geelong, okay, that gets us to 13. That maybe does it. Good, fingers crossed. But like, I think we just got, even with the senior guys back in, I think it's probably, if we like win the next, I'm just having a look at it.
It's the next, I reckon if you win the next two, then there's only two for the rest of the year that you wouldn't start favourites in. I think that's where I'd be like, then there's a real chance. Because if you win the next two and then only lose those other two, then it's just percentage that'll come into it. And if you manage to pinch one of the Geelong or Brisbane games, then it's probably finals.
I need more than two. I reckon if we can get up to round 21, so we've got like Bulldogs, Fremantle, Saints, North, Giants, Essendon. So we get to round 21 and we've only dropped one of those games, which at the moment looks like will be the Dogs. And we just need, like, we'll beat the Eagles away.
The Giants
I'm not worried about that.
That'll be the percentage boost. If it's just coming down to percentage, we'll just have to. That game hasn't been announced yet. We're hoping that that's a Sunday afternoon slot, and we're just
players left.
Well, it will come down to percentage, because I wrote something earlier this year about how like teams should take their foot off the pedal.
It'll be really
because
funny
it
if
almost
that comes back.
comes down to percentage. And like everything I've written this year, within about a week or two, it's come back to bite me.
In your own famous now words, you'll never guess whose petard you've been hoisted by if Sydney misses finals on percentage alone.
Yeah, no, that's what'll happen. We'll finish with like 12 wins, and it'll be like out by like the margin of, I don't know, however much we lose by the Bulldogs to tomorrow night. But no, as Polly said, it's just so much more fun, and just like the thing about the injuries we had were, and we talk about like Logan Morris. You think about him, he's when I say like everything happening upstream of him. The Swans, even with the coaching change, are such a build from the back team that losing Millsy, having like Con McCartan playing out of position and then out, and then Melican's out, and all of
Cunningham.
that stuff was just like Roberts. I saw people wanting to like.
I love how big you are on Cunningham, Polly.
He's the most important squad. I've been saying this for years.
How I feel about Jed Buse. Jed Buse came back into the Geelong side and they stormed into a prelim. I don't know what to tell you. It's Jed Buse. He's not playing right now. Anyway.
Absolutely. Well, it's a thing that he lets everybody else do. But when like Millsy, in particular, this one like gets the engine room. It's like, I remember I was so frustrated for weeks watching David King talk about like why is Cox asking Nick Blakey to do so much defensive work, and so well, who are we going to trust?
I think we made a joke
to Joel Hamling.
Maybe 5 out of 10 straight weeks on here, jokes about people talking about putting Blakey in the forward line because the forward line was malfunctioning. It was just a genuine bit on here where we were like, that's the dumbest possible thing you could do. He was the only person getting the ball in there.
There were people genuinely calling for that. That's not like...
Yeah, it was insane. They said put him at full forward one game, and we were sitting here like, the ball's not going to full forward.
The thing is that, like, this is what's so frustrating when it's your team, is that no one else can remember that we have tried Nick Blakey full forward. Like, I've seen that.
There was one quarter where Coxie actually did that this year.
Yeah.
And it was too little too late.
He tried a lot of people up there, actually.
Yes, he tried anyone. Literally anyone that could stand on 2 legs, they tried to put forward. But
you know what Cox needs? Cox needs the missing SD card from the grand final. The money I would pay to know what was said on there for that to be gone completely. Just like...
I would say probably that he was probably going to leave, and then he ended up leaving anyway, so maybe like...
Clearly he's gone, well, since I'm already quitting, they can't punish me anymore. I'm gone. I'm taking this SD card home.
I would, if I was to surmise, I would say it was not Longmire that removed that SD card. I would say it was
Oh, the
someone in the
club.
PR team that
Yeah, yeah,
removed that
absolutely,
SD card,
absolutely.
and they didn't want it to leak that he was
Well,
potentially thinking about leaving. That would be my best guess. I don't actually
yeah,
know. I
like a
have
thank
no
God I'm
idea.
done with this fucking
Yeah,
team
yeah,
bit. Well, I
Yeah, in
always
the
think
last
about
quarter, he
the
just teed off on Israel.
and someone's like, we can't do that. The whole team's gonna get
Yeah.
Woke
suspended.
coach, woke
Oh,
coach.
Can't be having woke coaches. To be fair, him stepping away from coaching has meant that there is only one good segment in all of footy media, and it's him and Simo.
Oh,
It's
it's
the
the
best
best.
segment every
It's
week.
the best.
They're both so good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Get piss off Lion. Just have that every night. Like,
yeah, I agree. I'd watch that
yeah.
show. But that's
Well,
that's what First Crack used to try and be, and now it's also just trade talk.
oh, Jake.
Jay Clark
Get,
ruined First Crack.
get me on for another episode just so I can talk about Jay Clark for an hour.
We could do that. Yeah, I think so. We could do a
I
special.
will
And Alistair would
absolutely do
join in. He also is livid about Jay Clark. So
it. Yeah.
like we
my
went from
favorite.
watching First Crack and 360 every week to Alistair sometimes watches First Crack and we never watch 360.
Yeah, I hate watch First Crack.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah. The sounds
But
that get
yeah,
made in this
no,
house when Bounce almost comes on though is always funny. Like, oh no, Bounce!
oh god, oh yeah.
There's
No,
not.
I'm still
The thing
introducing
is,
Bounce as my sleep paralysis demon.
Seeing Andrew Gaze's face.
it's
No.
it's funny how Fox and this could be as someone who worked there, this could be any number of things because I do know how disorganized they are in that office. But they went from having the best footy shows to having unwatchable footy shows, and I just don't know where they lost their way. It's like they just were trying too hard to compete. Yeah. Too hard to compete with Channel 9 and Channel 7 that they were like, we just need to produce any shit. And then we've got what we've got. Like when I was watching the doco last night, the guy from Open Mic, whose net last time I can't remember, showed up and I was like, whatever happened to Open Mic? That was interesting at
Yeah.
least. Like,
Mike Sheehan?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like I don't get it because like off the top of my head, they didn't actually like lose that many much talent to 7 or 9. Like the only guy they like
It wasn't even
really
talent. It was just like they were wanting to like produce this exact same thing that they're producing because they think that's
yeah,
what
exactly it.
works.
Yeah, they just like I don't know, Robert, I never like Robert is like one of those ones that he's a little bit like Cunningham where I didn't realize how important he was
Yeah,
until he
until
was
you're
gone.
gone. Yeah.
And as soon as I said Gary Lyon, I was like, it's just it's too different and too similar at the same time. Where it's like it's
Yeah.
not actually a point of difference from Robbo, except
That's
that
why
like
it worked. It was the odd
yeah, he doesn't
couple.
have
You
that
were like,
charm.
yeah, like no one cares what Gary Lyon has to say. And it's not even like he's gonna have a funny gaff. Like you're
No,
not gonna
yeah,
ever see Robert you're never gonna see Gary Lyon going, is that the moon, Jared?
all timer.
Like it's just and I think they also classic Fox style, they're like, okay, we can afford to have 10 talent. We're gonna use the same talent across everything, so we don't have to pay for someone else to be here. Because honestly, they were only paying Robbo to show up to 360. He wasn't commentating, he wasn't doing anything else. And
Yeah,
Jared's now on the books for commentary. And so they're like, all right, whoever's we're paying to commentate has to do a show as well or something. And I think that's where they really sort of shot themselves in the foot because no one wants to watch a show with Gary Lyon. And
no,
really,
yeah,
no one
absolutely
really wants
right.
to watch a
Yeah,
show with
that's
Gerald,
really cool.
but he's, they just keep him on the air because he at some point was insightful. Like,
Totally. And yeah, it is gotten to the point where you guys were saying this last week. It's all so self-referential too now, where it's like someone will say something on like one of the two footy classifieds, or will get reacted to on agenda setters, or will get reacted to on the other footy classified, and then that'll get reacted to on SEN. It
what is
just
it?
goes
The
around in
midweek tackle?
circles. I didn't even this. So midweek
I was
tackle really
trying
annoys
to
me
name
because
them
like
all, and I literally couldn't.
we like every show, like obviously like this one, etc. They're named after like a common phrase in football, like something like that. But like midweek tackle isn't a thing.
Yeah, like it sounds like the thing you come up with in a a board meeting brainstorming session and it's like the first name someone writes down, like that doesn't make any sense. We're moving on to the next one. Like,
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dire circumstances.
Yeah, that's for my one for when the rule comes in, a show called Last Touch that's on Thursday afternoon before the game starts. I would like
It's
that.
great.
Midweek tackle makes no sense. Yeah, we were devastated to learn after we came up with the back pocket at 2 a.m. In like not talking to each other. Our rooms share a wall, but we were texting.
you could have been
we
talking at 2
learned that
a.m. That's not weird.
that's what I mean. Like it's weirder that we weren't, considering
Yeah.
we live in the same house. And then we learned that there were already shows called Back Pocket and The Back Pocket, and I was like, well, we're stuck with it now. We've done the branding. I've got the website. I can't undo it.
To be fair, you're the only one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think we're the one that most people know of
And I
now,
think,
which is very
like,
strange.
as someone who has lived in Sydney their whole life, and so AFL media, from my perspective, would be very different from Jack's in particular, who is having a Western Australian perspective. It is very weird only sort of getting the glimpses of it through social media because I didn't grow up with Fox, so there was no footy media on
neither.
TV.
We just got 20 minutes on West Coast, 5 minutes on Fremantle, and then 5 minutes on the other 16 teams in the comp.
Not even that. And the AFL footy show would air at midnight in Sydney. So obviously I was not staying up for that. So my perspective on AFL media has like very vastly changed in the last 10 years. But I haven't grown up tuning into footy media. So I only ever get my my media from social media. So I'm only ever getting the worst of it because I'm not even seeing the other shit that they film. It's always just the clickbaity shit that they clip up and post on social media that I ever see anyway. So it's just very like seeing it from that perspective of I used to maybe see one clip a week of something that was maybe remotely funny that was said. Now it's every day you're getting some argumentative little clip that they just want to post on social media. It's like it's just become a nightmare.
I've grown much more cynical of football media since interacting with a lot more people who work in it.
Yeah.
Because I think when you don't do as much football related stuff, you don't necessarily see how cynical a lot of the takes are. And then like the more you're involved in it, the more you see how many people are just doing it to get a reaction or to create a story. And
Or
like
even,
that's the more frustrating part.
Knowing who has ins at which club, and you're like,
That
okay, well, they don't actually have it in at that club, so that's probably not true, or vice versa. And it's like, oh, well, it's just all you kiss my butt, I'll kiss your butt. Like, and there's no value ever added to it.
Yeah. And then I feel like the opposite is true about football fans. The more people I've met to do with football, despite the fact that some fan bases I do think are roundly insane, I feel so bad about roundly panning a football team now because there is no football team anymore that I don't have a few people that I really like that support them.
Yes, true.
Like every time I want to absolutely trash talk a team, I'm like, now I feel a little bit guilty. Like only like before, I didn't know fans of these teams, so there was no reason for me to care. And now I'm like, I know this one specific person will feel really bad that I've said this.
It's true.
The funniest one is, and Joe, you talked about panning St Kilda, is that at the start of the year, I did it. Coming into the season, hadn't started yet, I was like, they sacked Brett Ratton for having the exact same scoreline as Ross Lyon currently does, except he won a final. And Saints fans were adamant that it was the right choice and that he was taking them to the next phase. And all these weeks later, those exact same Saints fans are right where I was at the start of the year. And I'm like, I'm not going to rub it in because that would feel so much worse. But it is very funny to see the change in mood.
I think as well, one thing that I've noticed from knowing more people, because again, I grew up in Sydney, I was the only Swans, like the AFL fan that I knew, is people don't actually follow footy that closely.
No.
That would, if like they, and even like their clubs, I don't even think they follow that closely. It's a lot of the fans, not really people listening to this, because if you're listening to this kind of podcast, you obviously really care about footy.
Football. Yeah.
But like,
if you're listening to this, you're also very handsome.
Yes,
that's true. Or beautiful, whichever way you prefer. That's fine. Or both.
Or both. Yeah. But there's a lot of fans out there that are just very surface level and they don't actually follow the game closely or understand how the game even works
Way
a lot
more
of the
than I think
time.
I thought before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's just a reflection on we follow it a certain way because I think the three of us all follow it
Yeah.
very similarly. And then when people don't follow that way, it's like, oh, you don't have to be, insane about it. You don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
you can
like
just watch the
dedicate your
football.
entire
I
life
wish I
to
could just
it.
watch the football. I was
Yeah.
talking to someone about this the other day, and they were talking about like it was with the movie chat. I think Joe, I think you were actually part of that thread. And I
Hmm.
was like, I had a sudden realization like quite recently that I was like, what if I just didn't watch every game of football? I could not do that. I could do other things with my weekend that aren't watching the
It's
football.
nice.
I
It's
don't.
nice sometimes to not watch every game of football. We'll say that. But then
Yeah, well,
I'm
we
usually
also
just watching other sports. So at the end of the day, like, does it
we
make a
often say like
difference?
if a 19th team came in, that would kill this show because it would like the buy and everything else would just be too annoying and an extra team. And we're like, and that might be nice just to watch one or two games a weekend and
Yeah.
plot
As someone
along.
who
And
very, very, very loosely follows NRL, it is a nightmare having
I'm
that
also,
extra
yeah,
buy in there.
loosely follows is my
Yeah.
definition of yeah. I'll watch a Bunnies game if it's on at the same time as not a football game that I'm
I won't
watching.
even watch it. It's more just dad did South win. You happy? Okay. Bye.
My dad used to be a Cronulla fan until he learned that Scott Morrison was a Cronulla fan, and now he doesn't have a team. He just immediately was like, I have no team. That's
That
it.
is the valid. That is so valid.
That's so good.
I didn't blame him
I
at
think
all.
there are a lot of things that should have stopped embarrassing for Cronulla before that, but that's to move on.
Have you
Well,
ever
he
been
like
to the Shire before?
he had no. The
Yeah,
reason he
there you
followed
go.
Cronulla was a bunch of former Cronulla boys were in Kalgoorlie working on the mines when he was in his 20s. Um, and he got along really well with them. And this was in like what the 70s, so it's not
Yeah,
like this is a
probably.
long time ago. And Dad was like, "Oh, well, I guess I have a rugby team." Um, and then I just watched the Russell Crowe
League.
documentary.
League team.
Um, and that was when I
Sorry.
supported the Bunnies. I was just like, "That's enough for me." I love Russell Crowe. Also, just hearing about this man going from like doing two Oscar award winning movies and being like, I know what I'm going to do with my newfound wealth. I'm going to go back to Australia. I'm going to buy my childhood rugby team and I'm going to build it back up from the
Yeah,
ground.
Jack, I feel like you and I could have a whole other you can do your first crack podcast with Joe. And you could do it just a bunnies podcast with me.
Yeah, yeah, we
We
could.
could
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
more to
I
talk
hate
about the
every second
history
of
of the
this. I hate the
Bunnies.
bunnies with
I know
every
you
part of
do.
my heart and soul.
I remember I was watching, this is going to be, I've never talked about rugby on this show before ever because Alistair would just give me the
League,
blankest
Jack,
stare.
league.
I'm in
Yeah,
Perth,
that's
all
been killing
right?
me too. I can tell you.
I'm in Perth. I know to say
I
league when I'm
know,
over, but anyway,
you
I
also
was
Perth is a very big union state, so it's not like well, it's all the South Africans,
yeah,
but
correct.
still.
Yeah. And I don't talk to them. But there was a while ago we were talking about the football, and Alistair said North Sydney, and I went, oh, like the Bears, and he just blank stared me, and I went, move on, it's fine, it's okay, we'll
Don't
just.
worry.
And now they're the Perth Bears, so that's
Yeah.
a
It's
thing.
Yeah, now he's gonna learn.
serendipitous.
But my favorite was there was years ago I was watching, I think it was a Raiders grand final. Most rest of I've been
Yeah.
watching a
Yeah.
league game that Bunnies weren't playing in my life. And I was just like,
I'm
I
pretty
made up my
sure the
mind
Roosters
that
won that
day.
game.
Yeah, they
I
did.
remember that
I
very
made up my
well.
mind. Oh, yeah, I know how it happened too. Um, I made many memes about it. But I made up my mind that day that Latrell Mitchell was my favorite non-Bunnies player. Only for very quickly for him to be a Bunnies player. And I was like, life's so good.
Yeah.
Life's so good.
As I've said to you before, like, look, you do have a little bit of pain in your sports fandom, but realistically, you have it very, very well.
I experienced very momentary Tottenham joy. It was the briefest glimpse of Tottenham joy I've ever experienced since in my, like, at 22, stupidly picking that team. Anyway.
Yeah. We'll take another episode tomorrow night where we just talk about any other sport.
Any other sport, yeah. I now understand why the Great Cricketer Boys made their other podcast about every sport that's not cricket. It makes so much more sense to me now.
It is also like we probably turned everyone off because in
Oh,
my
yeah.
experience, most footy fans do not give a about any other sport.
They would have heard league mentioned and just they heard the word bunnies. They're like, what the fuck's a bunny?
I mean,
Done. To be fair, Alice's sister usually listens to this. Jessica, if you are listening still, hi. I know you normally get through the jokes and go, well, now it's football. She's probably more confused than anyone. So she's only like Carlton football. That's about it.
like
But she does own the only, to my knowledge, printed version of the Back Pocket Us in the Bed as you put it,
shirt. Yeah,
shirt. So that's something.
See, on a shirt that would look like a pocket.
It does. It looks like a
makes
pocket.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
nice.
so where I went wrong is I bought the bed sheet.
Oh yeah, that's fair. It would look really confusing with like the two heads already sticking out on the cover, and then your head sticking out above it,
Yeah, it's like
I'm not gonna
I
make a
like
joke
to
about
like get in
that.
between you.
like a
Yeah.
double decker bed. Yeah. Anyway, this has probably been like the longest episode we've ever recorded now, I think.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is rugby league chat now too, so
Yeah,
you
that
can
is
chop that down.
no, everyone can listen to that. That's fine.
That's great.
And I look forward to
know,
listening to the part
it's
that I
always
missed.
better to know more about other sports. You can
Yeah.
talk to anyone then.
Oh, there was one time a few years ago we talked about the T20 World Cup for ages because Alistair broke his foot running in while Maxwell was hitting his 100. He ran in, clipped on the aircon. We watched the end of the game and then we had to take him to hospital because his foot was completely broken.
Pretty much every time I've spoken to you or listened to the podcast, there has been some traumatic story regarding an injury and a sports match.
It's usually my dad or Alistair. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was talking about it on last week's episode. That Dad might still have his eye if it wasn't for a night grand final happening. Like we wouldn't have kept drinking scotch if it was 3 PM. Like that wouldn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was a joke the first time I heard, and then you kept going, and like, oh wow,
I feel like I'd seen you see it maybe before, so I was like, I'm pretty sure this is real.
It was a crazy time. He's fine now, but what a night.
He grew back. Yeah.
Thanks, Dustin Martin. You prick.
That's someone who is on the other side. If we want to
talk
about the asshole line.
Yeah. Like amazing at football, but I could never bring myself to warm to Dustin Martin.
That he is probably the bottom of the list of someone I would want to have a beer with.
Oh yeah, no, especially not if there was a Chinese restaurant and chopsticks involved. I would steer clear. It's so weird. Like and I know I'm a Geelong fan, but I find it so weird the level of hate Dangerfield gets from the average football fan compared to footballers who are proven poor human beings off the field. Danger seems like the biggest dag. Like his only trait would be that he is too much of a dag, and you'd be like, please go and fish and stop talking to me.
Yeah.
I've never understood it. He seems like the dorkiest dude.
It's a weird one for me, and I'm not going to bring up a specific player, but I'm willing sometimes to turn a blind eye to the off-field stuff that isn't like actually hurting someone, right? Like if it's like they were a bit of a dickhead to me, I'm like, okay, whatever, it's what you present yourself in the actual media that I'm like, that's where I draw my conclusions about you. How you present yourself on field and how you talk to the media is how I always make my judgments on people. So I'm for Danger, I'm like, he's never really done anything off field or in the media to make me not like him, so why would I not like him?
No, he just thinks very highly of himself, and probably fair. He's been very good for a long time. It's one of those ones where it's like, okay, prove him wrong, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the best players of this century goes, I'm quite good at football, and people go, you arrogant prick, and it's like, all right.
Tall poppy syndrome at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Just got to peel back the curtain for 1 second, just to give
your
people a sense of what time we're recording this. The AFL X Score bot has just tweeted it's over.
Oh, it's over? Yeah, it's over. Oh boy, hey, look.
At Q3, 5 minutes and 16
Mitch
seconds.
McGovern kicks this goal, and then they kick
the
10 more in a row.
Scored.
It's back on. So
it's been 12 minutes. It's been 3 minutes, and the Matildas have scored.
Really?
Yeah.
That's here, and I'm not at that one. But I am going to the one in Bunbury next week, which is a 2.5-hour drive from here.
I'm not going to question that.
Well, I've never been to Bunbury's Oval before, other than for Groove and the Moo one time.
And
yeah.
They kick 2. The Tillies might actually outscore them.
Outscore, that'd be really funny.
That would be
J.E.
very
Hands
funny.
Memorial Oval is the full term.
A Hands Oval is funnier, Jack.
Yeah, it is funny.
I'm going to keep calling it the Hands
It's
Oval.
also enormous.
Yeah, it's like the second biggest AFL ground.
I'd only been there again for Groove and the Moo, and you don't really understand what it looks like as an oval when there's like stadiums like on it. But seeing it for that football game, I was like, oh, that's just like a giant. Like the gap between the center square and both the wings and the 50s is nuts.
Sorry, I'm making a face because I feel like that might have been a debutante goal.
Oh,
or at least she'd never scored a goal before. I can't pronounce her last name. Gelnick?
See, that's the problem with that. See, that's soccer. I'm like, so many of these names that I'm like, I feel like I'm going to mispronounce this because I've only ever read it.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
watch a lot of the soccer on mute in the bottom of my computer screen, so I don't even hear the commentators say the names. Does not help.
Oh no, she's much older than I thought she was. Never mind.
Since we've had my technical issues of my computer shutting down, and that's fine, we addressed it. We've had technical issues here we talked about, and Joe's computer might be dying. Mine gave me that minute of warning when I was like,
left. Yeah.
Yeah, it just went, you should consider charging your battery. And then by the time I found the charger, it was done.
Well,
so
listeners can try and guess when Jack went to get his laptop charger.
That's
the longest Jack has not talked in history, probably with the moment you'd pick it for.
No, that's all right. I was doing a very sterling Jack impression.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There was a guy.
Yeah, you have a South African accent,
and we should. There was a there was a guy one time messaged the pod. He'd like listened to his first episode and he sent a message. He's like, "Hey, this is a weird message." He's like, I don't know which one of you it is, and I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it. But you have the exact same speaking patterns as me, and it's the most weird like listening experience I've had in my life." And he went back and it was Alistair. And earlier this week I was like, what if I got that guy on? Who would even notice?
People will often not know which one is Deeps and which one is Mads, and they don't even sound remotely alike, so I'm not that surprised.
Unfortunately, Alistair and I have similar speaking patterns, even if our general tone is different. Like if we go up or down.
Well, you know, when you like, this is Jack, this is Alistair, you're like, okay, I don't know which is which. But if you just tuned in for the first time, I'm just going to guess. Like,
I have no idea.
Assigned a name, we'll figure it out at the end.
Today it's easy. We've all got very different voices. That's nice. Joe's so beautifully soft-spoken. I go down, up, down, and up, down, up. Yeah. And this week it'll be so much easier to edit because I don't have to edit out the peaks of Alistair laughing on the microphone that like just peaks it every time. It's great. It's fun, but it's like
pull this down again.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today and helping get the episode out. Thank you to everyone who listened through to the end of what is going to be a very long podcast that got way off the topic of football towards the end. And that's fine. We talked about football that other people would call football. I
think we talked about every Australian sport. So there you go.
Yeah, we might have done. Yeah.
Have us back on for the pre-finals bye and we can have anything but football chat.
That'd be so good, actually. Yeah, Alistair would be so happy to not record that week. So
yeah,
I'll get around that. We should do that. That was when I did the Brett Burton podcast years ago. It was the pre-finals bye. So maybe we can all do the Brett Burton. Like get a laptop in a hotel room randomly somewhere in South Australia.
Yeah, we'll make it the most widespread back pocket episode ever. We're just going to do different parts of the globe.
That'd be good. But anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.
See you.